What is up, party people? Welcome back to the Rise and Bind podcast. My name is Chris Langille. I am your host and founder of Advisor Evolve. Today, I'm joined by a friend, fellow entrepreneur, agency owner, who really doesn't need much of an introduction, although I will give him one, Mr. Bradley Flowers from Portal Insurance. And there's a lot of other stuff that you're involved in too, man. And I appreciate you jumping on the podcast today, man. Welcome to Rise and Bind, brother.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to be on. Happy to chat. We don't. You and I talk a lot through Messenger, but we almost never talk like face to face.
Yeah. Funny how that goes. Everybody has their Messenger buddies, and then like you rarely see people. It's I feel like there hasn't been a lot of events, man, to catch up with people at lately.
Yeah,
so I'm sure that will pick back up here soon. But no, I appreciate you jumping on, man. We I had an idea, and I thought I sought you out because I thought you would be a great person to talk about this. And I hope this really kind of maybe opens people's eyes and ears a little bit, because I see it personally as being sort of an issue or distraction or shiny object. And the question that I want to ask you as we dive right into this is, how much tech is too much tech? And I'll let you go in whatever direction you want to go in, but I see this being a little bit of a hot button topic in our space right now, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff happening on the tech front in insurance. I mean, there's sort of been 2018, 2019 sort of been like a technology renaissance in the insurance industry. And then obviously with the AI stuff, ChatGPT a few years ago, now it seems like it's compounded even more. And now every company is doing AI, whether they're actually doing AI or not. And it's like being shoved in your face. And there's a lot of different ways to go. And, I saw a tweet the other day that said, something like, stop calling your web scrapers AI that you've had for 10 years or whatever,
I know.
It's like, but it's created a lot of options. It's created a lot of shiny objects. And, I'm the proponent of, we need less tech that does more. In other words, and I think that goes for any business, but in other words, like, I don't want 15 tools that do 15 things. I want 5 tools that do 15 things, and I think
100%.
we started going down the path of too much technology a few years ago. When we started Portal, I tell people this all the time, like, most people, when they start an agency, especially if they're coming from within the industry, because if you're in the industry and you're working somewhere where you can't use a lot of tech, you all of a sudden, now the world is your oyster. You can use as much tech as you possibly want to. And people tend to buy too much tech when they do that. And so when we started Portal, we had an AMS, a phone system, and an e-signature platform. That was it. It was like, what do we have to do to get us profitable? And then once we hit profit, now, okay, we can start layering things on, right? And just to be honest, like, there's a lot of tools out there that are wants, not needs, that I think people sign up for. And but we ventured down the path maybe 3 years ago where we were paying for too much stuff. And what really opened my eyes to it was bringing on a fractional CFO to kind of go through my books and what I was spending in each category and that sort of thing. And, basically the way that we track it is each spending category as a percentage of revenue, and then what is the benchmark for other agencies that are my size. And I was under in every category, and I was like 3x on technology. And so it's like, okay, what are there's stuff we're paying for that we might use twice a year, that, yeah, it's useful, but it's not like nothing's going to change in the business if we don't have it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We might be inconvenienced twice a year, but I think the benchmark for agents, or the sort of North Star for agents when they're looking at technology to avoid buying too much tech, is what system talks to what system, and how do those two systems work together. Like, for example, there was a program that we tried a few years ago that several programs, actually. I think we actually tried, I think at one point we had a subscription with every program in this sector, and it was a cord filler programs. And all three of them were great systems. They made filling out of cords very easily, and yet was a convenience. But then there's no integration on the AMS side, right? So, you make the Accord easier, but then my people have to enter the info again, and you know what I mean? So, like, it's basically, and I've said this analogy forever, it's like a whack-a-mole situation where, okay, you solve this problem, but now you have another one over here. To me, that's a net even. You know what I mean? Like, we might as well just keep doing what we're doing.
Exactly.
And so that's with the less tech does more thing is something I try to abide by. It's like, okay, here's this new program that's really cool. Can we get 80% of the way there with the technology we're using?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And not have to deal with onboarding a new company, that sort of thing. And then, another thing, you told me to just go, so I'm just going. Another thing I think
go do it.
that, some of these tech companies, and I'm friends with a lot of them, and I don't disparage them for doing this, but they'll reach out to agents and say, hey, we want you to beta test this. And it makes you feel special, and you're like, oh, cool. Like, we're one of the first people to have access to this. And in fact, my first, employee agreement had a non-disclosure in there because we were using some tech that other agents didn't know about yet. I have learned that I'm not a beta tester. I don't want to beta test it. I don't want to get the half-baked version, right? Like, get the kinks worked out and then come to me.
It's a time, it's a time investment too for you. I mean, it's
100%.
Yeah.
And we're very, very, very slow to roll out a new tech here at Portal. Like the one program that we used, that we're currently using, we had, myself and two others had access to it for like a year, or not a year, but a long amount of time before we rolled it out to everybody else, because we wanted to make sure it worked. You know what I mean? And then, another example of something that was convenient that we've recently eliminated are these programs that pull the deck pages from carriers, that a lot of people are hot on. The market that we're in a coastal market, a lot of regional carriers. There's not a lot of carrier portals.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it sort of complicated the process, right? Yeah. Maybe once or twice a month we had somebody that was able to do it, and it was really cool, for the client. But we eliminated that because I was like, look, I'm paying, $150 a month or whatever it was. Like, that's $1,800 a year for something that we really don't need.
Yeah.
It's a nice to have, not a need to have. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the other way I look at stuff, Chris, let's say something costs you $3,000 a year that you use just sometimes. And let's say your agency is valued at 8 times EBITDA or 10 times EBITDA to make it easy. Okay. It actually costs you $30,000.
Yeah.
If you were to sell your agency, you're going to get $30,000 less because you have this tool. You know what I mean? So, like, there's a million different ways to look at it, but that's sort of my monologue on too much tech.
Yeah.
And I'm not an anti-technology guy. Like, I'm a pro-technology guy. I think that's what separates Portal from all of our competition. Now, I will say the bar is very low. I spoke to the Alabama Big I 2 years ago, and I asked a room of 400 agency owners who in there is using a CRM that is not your agency management system, because none of the agency management systems are set up to be a proper CRM.
Correct.
And 0 hands went up out of 400 people. So I was like, oh, crap, all I got to do is have a CRM, and I'm already like,
Yeah.
and I invest in technology companies, and I've started a couple recently that are still behind the scenes, but I think people just need to be very methodical when it comes to adopting technology.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Like, it's not there's no slight here on any tech tool or vendor or anything like that. Like, to your point, I'm pro technology as well. And I've been down many of rabbit hole in my day, even back when I was an agent and ran an agency. And it gets to a point where it becomes a true and tangible distraction. And I think, while some of these tools are really great at what they do, and there's no doubt that a tool like a deck page retrieval tool can and will save you time, right? And you multiply that time savings over, let's say 12 months or whatever, and you can do the math, right? And to see like how much, because time is money, how much money did that save us? But to your point earlier, if it's a whack-a-mole where, it's costing you $2,000, but it's only saving you $2,000 in time, it's like, okay, let's reevaluate that. And I think there's also this, there's been this belief in our space, and I see this in other industries as well, because I consult businesses that are not in insurance financial as well, but there's a tech push in other agencies as well. A good friend of mine has a home improvement. He does like roofing, siding, windows, and we're in the process now of rebuilding his site and going through all of his digital assets and data and this and that. And I'm uncovering some things with him that I see with insurance agencies with, like, you have a CRM, you don't need another software that gets Google reviews. Your CRM can and should be doing that. You don't need this other $100 a month tool. And I think there's this belief among, people in our industry that you need to have a tool or a software for every little thing. And I think that's, again, is it dangerous? No, because a lot of these agencies, they can afford the monthly cost, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the financial component. It's, the fragmentation that you deal with. Like, you have 10 different softwares. Okay, that's 10 different help desks or that you're asking questions to. It's 10 different people that you have to deal with. It's completely fragmented. And hopefully there will be a day in our industry where there's a standardized uniform code base where every software tool would magically connect to each other in some facet, through APIs or what have you.
You and I are going to be very old men when that happens.
We'll
be the old man yelling at the cloud when that happens.
Yeah. No, but I mean,
it was a good example of that. Is there's many tools out there in insurance that, like, their main focus is Google reviews, right? I'll tell you this. So Portal, both of our locations, it's 2 separate Google pages. Combined, we have more Google reviews than any insurance agency in Alabama. I'm hesitant to say this. I think we have more Google reviews than any company in Alabama. I haven't seen one yet that has more. I asked ChatGPT the other day, and it gave me a company name that had the most Google reviews, and I looked at it, and it was actually less than what we had. The way that we got those reviews was sending a text message from our CRM. There was no like crazy, like wacky, it was just literally like, new customer, second day, hey, would you leave us a 5-star Google review? Like, too many people overcomplicate too much stuff.
Yep. No,
it's simple.
Keep it simple. I know. And to your point about CRMs, I mean, I think it's kind of important too to touch on that is, unfortunately, I know a lot of agencies that are underutilizing their CRM. No matter which one, most of them are. And it's actually, interestingly enough, right, it's created this entire ecosystem or economy. It's created this sub-market of vendors who specialize in building out automations and supporting the clients, which I think is a good thing. I mean, it's, there's a handful of agents that can do everything themselves. And I see people, some folks on Twitter that are like, I can't believe these agencies are paying people all this money to build these things out. And it's like, not every agency can and should be doing that themselves, right?
Yeah, the balance, right? Like a lot of agency owners, the more techie agency owners love to say these words. I built this automation today.
Right.
They love to say that. That's like a prepackaged thing that is implanted in your brain when you get an insurance license. there's a weird like dichotomy and a balance of like, can you do it yourself versus should you do it yourself? Can you do it yourself to save money versus should you pay somebody to take it off your plate? You know what I mean? Like a good example for me was when I first started Portal, like I just managed my website on WordPress. Now I effed it up royally. And then we got to the point, I'm like, hey, I would rather just pay Chris to completely do this for me. Another example is forms. So we've always built our own forms for like customer onboarding. So like if somebody calls into my office for a quote, I don't want my CSR account manager taking the information down on a piece of paper. I want them entering it in a form so I get that data in a structured format so that I can do things with it. So we've always built and managed our own onboarding forms. As you can imagine, we ask a lot of questions. That can get a little complicated. It can break, and then I have to go fix it. And then we ended up last year signing up with Risk Advisor because I was like, hey, even though it's not as customizable as me doing it myself, and I lose a little bit of that pride in that I built it myself, I'd rather outsource that to somebody. That way, when there's an issue with it, they can fix it, not me. Because what's happening is our forms would break. I was the only person that could fix it. An employee would come to me, hey, this thing's broken. We need you to fix this. I've got 8 meetings that day and it's 4:00. You know what I mean? Like there's all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's the flip side of that of like people paying for stuff too early or paying for stuff that they could easily figure out on their own,
Sure.
and I don't disparage any of the automation builder folks. Like most of them, all of them are my friends and they're all great.
Same.
But I'll give you an example, yesterday, and I think like a lot of them do a great job. I mean, you got like, Casey and Austin and Mariah, like they all do a phenomenal job. I was at an agent's office yesterday. Actually, I took the side view mirror off my wife's brand new car 12 hours after she bought it. And it's a Rivian. I don't have to tell anybody here. There's no Rivian service centers in Alabama.
Yeah, you might be duct taping that thing on for a couple of years, dude.
I zip tied it on. I looked like Jed Clampett. She looked like Jed Clampett driving down the road. But I told her, I was like, hey, look, I'll get it. I'll take care of it. So I had to go out of state to fix it, to get it fixed. And so I went yesterday to get it fixed. And I was like, hey, I'm out of state. I don't want to get it done in one day. So it's going to take all day. So I found there's an agent in that town that I know. And so I was like, hey, dude, I'm just going to come work at your office and hang out or whatever. So I was there and I was in the conference room. The 2 agency owners are in there and they had hired this company. And it's none of the people that I just mentioned. And I don't even think this company is an insurance specific, but it's a Zap builder. And they signed up. They're paying like 8 times what they were told on the front end. And the Zaps are broken and they're having to fix it themselves. And so the guy's he's got it pulled up on like the conference room thing. And I wasn't involved in this. They just happened to be working on it. And I looked up, I'm like, what are you trying to do? He's like, the Zap's broken and I can't figure out how to do it. And I was like, you know what you could do? He's like, what? I said, well, yesterday, for example, I wanted to figure out how I could get AI to automatically respond to my Google reviews for me. So you know what I did? I went into ChatGPT, I asked it that question and I said, using Zapier, and it spit it out. So just go into ChatGPT and say,
yeah,
I want to build this automation, and it'll tell you exactly how to do it. And even in some cases, spit code out, whether it's like Google Scripts or what. And that's not to say do that versus use some of these people, but
sure.
I think there's a lot of stuff that agents are paying for they really don't need to be paying.
100%. And it's not to say like, guys, like go out and cancel everything that you have. Like
Not at all.
That's not the point of this conversation. I think it's more so maybe reevaluate how you're using what you already have and find ways to use more of what you have and potentially trim some of the fat off the bone. And not to say cancel something, but more so like, okay, well, if we can send out a request for a Google review with our CRM, like, okay, like, does it make sense to have this other tool that does reviews, but allows you to embed like, I use a tool that collects video testimonials from people. And I can, with a script, just embed it on, and I have it on our website. If you go to our website, you'll see there's like a tab and you can see like these video testimonials, which is really cool. It makes it simple. Otherwise, I'd have to say to each person, hey, can you fire up Loom, send me the link? Then I would download it. I would upload it to some video. Like, it's $600 a year, right? It's $50 a month. For me, no brainer. Although I haven't asked people for a video testimonial in a while, so I need to get back on that train. But it's also to that point that I just mentioned. It's like sometimes people are not getting the value out of their tech because of their own, their own bad habits.
Well, I'll give you an example too, and this touches on tech, but it's really not tech. I'm sorry, I'm harping on the financial piece of it, but it's the beginning of the year. We just did budgeting. Everybody in this building knows I'm in cutting mode.
Yeah.
But so like when you get to a decent size, right? When you get to scale, right? Not that we're at scale, but we are much bigger than we were a few years ago. When you make one minor change, it has a rippling effect throughout the whole company, not just on the financial piece, but also with your people, because we've got 17 employees now. If I have this extra tool that everybody's having to like stumble their way through, that multiplies throughout those 17 people and makes them more inefficient. And looking at what you're doing now, and okay, does this company have a thing that can save me money here and make things easier? And I'll give you an example. So we're heavy users of Ascend, right? They have a thing they launched a couple months ago. So, the thing with Ascend is the customer pays through Ascend and then they pay the carrier for like agency bill stuff so that we don't have to deal with it, right? But the one caveat to that is, what do you do when you get a physical check in the mail? Then you have to have a whole separate process for physical checks. So they launched this thing where when you bill the customer or bill the mortgage company, there's a PO box at their office. It's like a digital mailbox that instead of them sending the check to you, they send it to them and then they process it just as if the customer paid through credit card, right? We put off doing it because I knew it was going to be a pain in the butt to set up, because we have to change our address for it on our invoices. We have to figure out a new process for it. And then the hard part is we got to call every single mortgage company and say, hey, our address is no longer this, it's this. And there's going to be a transition period where it's not exactly right. Well, so my bookkeeper, we're swapping bookkeepers. We were just using an individual here locally who's doing our books. And we've gotten to the point now to where we have too many transactions for her to do on the side for us. So I'm hiring a company to do it, an actual firm that specializes in insurance. And their quote for me was a little high. And so I get with the guy and I was like, hey, what if I can eliminate all the paper checks? And it cut it significantly where it made it worth doing it. And so that's sort of, I think what we're talking about is like looking at, okay, is there a feature that we have not utilized for a company we're already paying that for whatever reason, we're not using it? Maybe we're lazy. Maybe we just haven't taken the time to learn it. And then it's easier just to pay somebody else to do this. But in reality, this company can do it just as good and we don't have to add another vendor.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, it's worth mentioning, let's say you're paying $300 a month for some tool. Like, try to use $300 a month worth of that tool.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to cut back on things, but at the same time, I know some of these CRMs and some of the other tools that can do a lot of stuff. I know people that are using Agency Zoom and all they're using it for is pipeline lead tracking. Well, you can track leads in a lot of places. You can track leads in a spreadsheet, zap your leads from a form into a Google Sheet. But a tool like that does so much more than just, opportunity tracking. So it's like, how can we find ways to leverage, okay, we're spending the money, like, let's get the most out of it. And I think that's a low-hanging fruit probably for a vast majority of agencies.
And a lot of the companies are really bad at talking about what all they do. Right. They're not, for whatever reason, they're not great at it. So I always tell folks, like, don't be scared to have someone at the company that you're friends with and ask, like, hey, can you guys do this? Or how do we figure out a workaround to do this thing that I'm trying to do before I sign up with another vendor? I also say, don't be scared to ask for features.
Yeah.
You know, one
100%.
beautiful thing about a lot of the tech that's out there now, especially a lot of popular tech, is people will listen to you and build. You know, I'll never forget. So we were using Asana for a little while because it had like the digital checklist. So we were using Asana for renewals because I could have a digital checklist of step by step for renewals. And I called one of the main developer at Agency Zoom. This was before Vertiful bought them. And I was like, hey, I want you to build this for me. And he started laughing. He's like, you want me to copy the product of a multi-billion-dollar company? I was like, no, just the checklist, just the checklist thing. And then that was a Friday. On Monday, by Monday, he had built it. And now Agency Zoom has, they call it subtasks, where you can have that. So don't be scared to suggest features and say, hey, if you guys could do this thing, it would be phenomenal. And a lot of times, especially at some of the smaller companies, it's very easy to get that stuff done. That's how we get every dollar out of what we're paying for tools, is we just suggest features over and over and over and over and over. It becomes squeaky wheels. The portal is known as a squeaky wheel amongst a lot of the tech people because we're like, hey, we want this, we want this, we want this. And then it there's a sense of pride when you suggest a feature to someone and they end up building it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going through that actually right now. We're building an API level integration with Agency Zoom because we've had so many people reach out to say, hey, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Like me and you have had some conversations about some functionality. And so we've been in close conversation with them to not just build a very basic integration, but do some cool stuff. So we're excited about that. But yeah, closed mouths don't get fed, right? You don't know unless you ask. And, you know, the worst you're going to hear is the word no. And it's like, I could tell you right now, I have a list that's this long of stuff that we have been asked that we want to add into our product, and slowly we're rolling those things out. But that's the mark, I think, too, of a good vendor partner, is somebody that will take that feedback and take those requests and do actionable things with them, add them into the product. And sometimes, to your point, we've had people say, hey, we like how this thing captures all this data from the home and auto. And we're like, yeah, the rater, you want us to rebuild you your own personal rater? You know, that's $300,000. Like,
hey, I did that.
Yeah,
I did that. I built my own rater. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's.
However, mine is still a functional product. If anyone would like to buy it and they get to skip all of my mistakes, they definitely could.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of your endeavors, man, I'm excited. You know, I know that some of the stuff is still in the oven, but excited to hear more about some of the stuff you're working on behind the scenes. And I know you have real work to do today. So
when's this going to launch?
This will probably launch within the next week.
Okay. Well, I can't talk about some things. I was going to drop a little Easter egg, but I can't talk about it that soon. But yeah, we got a few things I'm working on. You know, I've started about 3 years ago. I started investing in some InsurTechs at the seed level. And I'm still doing that. And I'm a very small check writer. I like to learn and I like to be involved. And then now I'm doing some like joint ventures with some folks to start a few tech products that I selfishly want for my agency, but it's like, why not offer it to other people too? So I've got some cool things coming down the pipe.
Awesome. So you can find me at advisorevolve.com. Also, the Rise and Bind podcast will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. It'll be on every other podcast app that you guys listen to. And Bradley, not like, you know, people are, you know, don't know this already, but tell the lovely party people where they can find you.
Any social media platform, search my name. Don't go to my website and submit a lead like you're going to get a quote to try and get in touch with me. That happens a lot. I hate that so much. Or you can email me, Bradley at portalinsurance.com and insuranceguyspodcast.com, all the things. So
Insurance Guys Podcast.
Decent digital footprint. So just do a search on the Google and you'll figure it out.
Insurance Guys Podcast does have the word insurance in it.
It does. Yeah, we're so bad. We're
So,
so terrible.
but no, man, it was great. It was great kicking it with you, man. And you know what? I think there might be a part 2 to this conversation in the future, because there's a lot to talk about here, and I think we're just kind of scratching the surface. So
Absolutely.
I might
I'll give you one little thing too. This is a compliment, and this is 1000% true. I'm not saying that because I'm on Advisor Evolve's podcast. So we're an acquirer of insurance agencies. We bought 2 in the last 2 years, or 2 in the last year. And we've probably looked at 50 in between there. Anytime I get an agency that I think is for sale or that is for sale and I'm doing my recon on them, one of the things I try to figure out is like, how plugged in are they from a tech aspect, right? How plugged in are they in sort of the world that you and I play in, right? Because there's really 2 sides of the industry. There's the world that you and I are in, where everybody's like learning about new tech and trying to push forward. And then there's like sort of the old guard that is not using a CRM and has no idea what is going on in the industry. Do you know, this is 1,000,000% true, my telltale sign with how plugged in they are?
What's that?
I go to the website and I scroll down to the bottom, and if it says Advisor Evolve, I know, okay, they're going to have some tech, and it has never been wrong.
That's a green light. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, we've been very fortunate, man, through the years to work with a lot of agencies, and some great. I've become true friends with so many of our clients, which is awesome. So no, and you included, man. So I appreciate you for that, and I appreciate you jumping on with me, man. I know you're busy, and we will definitely have to do a part 2, because like I said, we're scratching the surface here. There's a lot to uncover here, and I'm sure that we'll both probably get some feedback, questions, ideas when this thing goes live. So appreciate you, brother. Hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you guys on the next episode of Rise and Bind. Peace.